Hi everyone, I'm Daniel. Welcome to Just One Truth. This is going to be part 6, video number 6 in the series Decoding the Gospel of Thomas. I'm going to kind of get into it pretty quickly. This time I'll give you a brief overview that the way I decode these is to not use supernatural and to not use religious outlooks. That this, to me, is a very spiritual, personal teaching. But that actually takes a step into the subconscious mind, that everything that we feel and that everything we experience in life, our emotional state and how we emanate our energy into and receive from the cosmos and from our surroundings, from our planet, from our population, from everything that we do in life, our interactions are controlled by the brain. Even if we feel them through our central nervous system, they are nevertheless controlled through the brain. And that was something that the ancients didn't know. They understood how to heal. They figured that out. But they didn't realize that it was the brain that did it. My realization at some point in time in life was that regardless of what belief you had, whether it was an Abrahamic evolved belief or Buddhism or Taoism, they were all various teachings for various times in different cultures that all nested this same teaching, and that at the core of each of these was the same teaching, the same personal inner teaching, the getting emptiness, the becoming poor in spirit, all of those terms that are used to describe emptying out our thoughts, our perceptions, our beliefs, our pain, our shame. And then in understanding that, it made it something that was a lot more accessible than meditating on chakras or crystals or praying to a god or something like that. You could get rid of those layers and just look at yourself and realize what the spiritual path is. It's not popular with everybody. I'm not suggesting that there is or isn't a soul, but what I am suggesting is that the healing takes place where the damage is, and the damage is in our experiences and our perceptions. If you're on board with this, you'll be fine just getting started. If this sounds very unfamiliar to you, I have described and outlined all of this in a playlist that I have called Beginnings and Overview. I've got videos in there that are Religion is Only Layer 2, What is the Soul, Stripping the Soul Naked, Each of Us is Adam and Eve, Meeting My Demons and Befriending Them, Why Forgive, Parts 1 and 2. If you went through all of those, you would really have a good handle on where I'm coming from. And I have posted links to those videos down below. In the last part, we ended with verse 62, so this time we'll pick up right with verse 63. Jesus says, "There was a rich person who had many possessions. He said, 'I will use my possessions so that I might sow, reap, plant, and fill my storehouses with fruit so that I will not lack anything.' This was what he was thinking in his heart. And in that night he died. Whoever has ears should hear." All right, in this case, I don't see where it is the kind of verse that you can turn it inward and make it about your subconscious mind, your soul, your memories, the things that you need to clean out to be one. I see this, and I'm sure most people that are on any kind of a spiritual path would recognize this as something that's kind of common. That this is the idea that if you continue to live your life thinking that I will prepare for the future, that I'm going to continue to work diligently and put things away and store stuff, you're looking to pack your warehouse with fruit. And fruit is all of the things that would manifest for you in life. And he's thinking it in his heart, which we know is his mind. But that night he died. Whoever has ears should hear. This is just a very simple lesson on live in the moment. You can spend all of your years trying to prepare for the future, and you could die at any time. Something could happen that prevents you from somehow moving on and enjoying the fruits of your labors. Live in the moment. This is very much a case of just be happy now. It doesn't mean you don't work. It doesn't mean you don't prepare. But it does mean be happy now. Be in the moment now. Live life now, day to day. So don't be a workaholic. Have fun along the way. Life should be enjoyable all the time. You got people in your life that rely on you to have fun with. Teach them that as well. I think one of the lessons that we've probably all learned in life, even if we're not consciously aware of it, is that your current feelings, your current state seems to perpetuate more of itself. So if you're constantly focused on one thing, then you constantly move that direction. If you're having fun, life still unfolds. If you're not having fun and enjoying life, life still unfolds. The difference is, in one case it's enjoyable, in the other case it's not. Have fun along the way. Okay, moving on to verse 64. Jesus says, "A person had guests, and when he had prepared the dinner, he sent his servant so that he might invite the guests. He came to the first and said to him, 'My master invites you.' He said, 'I have bills for some merchants. They are coming to me this evening. I will go and give instructions to them. Excuse me from the dinner.' He came to another and said to him, 'My master has invited you.' He said to him, 'I have bought a house, and I have been called away for a day. I will not have time.' He went to another and said to him, 'My master invites you.' He said to him, 'My friend is going to marry, and I am the one who is going to prepare the meal. I will not be able to come. Excuse me from the dinner.' He came up to another and said to him, 'My master invites you.' He said to him, 'I have bought a village. Since I am going to collect the rent, I will not be able to come. Excuse me.' The servant went away. He said to his master, 'Those whom you invited to the dinner have asked to be excused.' The master said to his servant, 'Go out on the roads. Bring back whomever you find so that they might have dinner. Dealers and merchants will not enter the places of my Father.'" Okay, does this one sound pretty clear? There's a lot to it. This may be the longest parable attributed to somebody named Jesus. When you see the correlation here, you're going to go, bingo. This is a Gnostic teaching that parallels a teaching that we find in Matthew. When Jesus came back for a Jewish holiday, went to the temple, and there's money changers and people doing things in there that are, honestly, the people are doing a legitimate thing. There's people traveling from all over, bringing money and exchanging money to buy animals to go into the temple to give their sacrifice. So realistically, you look at this and say, well, they weren't out there selling hot dogs and umbrellas and sunglasses. They weren't just making a profit. There was a legitimate thing if you look at it on the surface. But Jesus went in, and what did he do? He threw over the tables. They got pictures of him in the Bible of whipping people. It's the one time you look at this and go, wait a minute. Jesus says to love your enemy elsewhere. Why is he so violent right here? The temple in the book of Matthew is a metaphoric representation of the mind. This is the holy place. If you're an outward-looking person that doesn't get that, you need the church. You need to look outward. You need to have these physical things. But when you turn it inward, you realize that all of these things that are talked about outwardly are really representations of inward parts of us. The temple is the same thing as what you find here, the place of my Father, what we've been talking about, that part of you that manages everything, that is in control, that has a handle on all that goes on. This is kind of a backward built story. This is a story about people that don't belong in the place of my Father. Why would he say that? This was a dinner. The people that are in this story, they don't mean anything. He calls them later dealers and merchants. One of them is just going to go cook dinner for his friend for his wedding, so they're not all dealers and merchants. It's a story constructed ultimately to say that things don't belong up here. You clean it out. Go find people on the streets. Go find something else. Go find something good and kind. In other interpretations, it says go find the poor people and the beggars. None of those are important. What is important is to know that this is the place of the Father, like in Matthew, it is the temple. And that cleaning out all of the things that are in there that don't belong is what you need to do to find the kingdom of heaven within. What we have here in the Gospel of Thomas is a very Gnostic version of that story of cleaning things out, where in the Christian version, you have Jesus as this physical person going in and being angry, doing physical things against anything that stands against the church. Sometimes I wonder if whoever added that story in there understood what was nested inside of it. If you read that story in Matthew the same way as you read these, you still get the same thing out of it. It's still metaphoric parallels to who and what we are. The temple is us. The kingdom of the Father is here. It's always the same. It's the interpretation that gets all over the place. Use the same keys all the time, you come to the same place. I find it a bit strange to consider and to realize that the same lesson is nested still in the Bible. As long as you stick with the teachings of Jesus, you have to separate him out of Roman Paul's letters. But that the same teaching is there, no matter how it was said and how the stories were made and how the verse and the parables were constructed. It was done so cleverly that it fit a number of people's criteria. It fit with a lot of people's ideas because of the capacity to interpret it and to make it what you want it to be. Only in looking inside of it does it really reveal what is in there. Interpreting it how you want, looking outward. Thousands of Christian denominations exist today because of that very thing. Do they have the truth? Which one? I don't think so. I think that spiritual teachings look inward, not outward. And when you look outward, you kind of do make it what you want it to be, what feels good to you. When you look inward, you're not left with options. There's a path to follow, and you have to walk that path. We don't get to interpret it in a way that we want if we make it about ourselves. If you look outward, if you make the verse look outward, it's infinitely variable. It can go anywhere you want it to. But once you make it about yourself and you turn it inward, it has to go through this point right here. And in that act, we change it from outward-looking supernatural fantasy to the inward-looking real-life reality. Okay, let's move on to verse 65. He said, a usurer, that's like a loan shark, owned a vineyard. He gave it to some farmers so that they would work it and he might receive its fruit from them. He sent his servant so that the farmers might give him the fruit of the vineyard. They seized his servant, beat him, and almost killed him. The servant went back and told his master. His master said, perhaps they did not recognize him. He sent another servant, and the farmers beat that other one as well. Then the master sent his son and said, perhaps they will show respect for my son. But those farmers, since they knew he was the heir of the vineyard, seized him and killed him. Whoever has ears should hear. All right, let's go ahead and analyze this one. It's kind of strange verbiage, remembering though that this is 2,000 years old and it's been interpreted. But if we break it down, we look at it, and basically what we see is that somebody, the usurer, the guy who was the loan shark that gave and loaned, but had really high expectations for something back. This is somebody who was there to help you, but boy, it came with a price. You were going to pay for it. And he owned a vineyard. The vineyard can sometimes be the mind, the garden, the temple. There's a lot of metaphoric terms to describe that, so I'm not sure if that one fits here or not. This one I'm not 100% certain on this verse. But if we look at it, what we can glean is that somebody was giving, and he had expectations that they would work it and that they would give him his fruit. So obviously he wanted to profit from this. And when he sent people to go collect, they were treated poorly. They were beaten up. They were, in one case, even killed. I don't know how far to take this one as far as trying to analyze it any deeper. What I get out of this is the idea that if you give with expectations, what you get back also comes with expectations. The way we do things is the way things happen for us. We've already learned in previous verses, I'm not going to look them up, but the idea is that when you give without caveats, you give without attachments, you give out of the goodness of your heart. And then when you get things back, of course, the implication is that you get things back that same way, out of the goodness of your heart. You're not expecting something back from somebody. You're giving to somebody who needs over there, and you let it go. You let it go. Later on, you're somewhere else. You're having some kind of an experience, and somebody steps in and helps you out of the blue. It works that way. They have no expectations. You had no expectations. If you give to somebody and want something back, the deal is done right there. Your good deed is taken care of. You've got back whatever it was you were looking for. The way I see this story here is a lesson in giving unconditionally and knowing that when you need something, it'll come to you unconditionally as well. Remember in other teachings, when you give alms, do so in secret. Hide it. Don't stand out on the street corner like the Pharisees and make a big deal out of it. You do so quietly and privately, and your Father, which sees you in secret, rewards you in secret. But if you want people to acknowledge you for your good deeds, you've got your reward right there. Don't expect anything back beyond that. Okay, moving on to verse number 66. Jesus says, "Show me the stone that the builders have rejected. It is the cornerstone." Okay, for this one, using the keys, I can see two possible explanations. Number one, we'll use the keys. Make it about yourself, make it about your subconscious mind. And our destination, what we're heading for, is what Jesus wants us to get to, the kingdom of heaven within, which is Buddha's nirvana. So keeping those all in mind, we don't fly off all over the place. We stick with that. What would the cornerstone be? One of the things that we've already covered so far is how we have issues inside of us that need to be exposed. Remember in the previous episodes, the tree being cut. It's not enough to cut the tree. You have to pull the root out as well. There are times in life where we may be dealing with issues, dealing with trying to rectify our pain. But there are things in place that are causing difficulty for us in life. Anger, lashing out at people, hurting people, abusive behavior to others or to ourselves. What is the cause of that? Where does that originate? Is it enough to say, boy, I'm done. I can't do that anymore. I'm really a wreck. We can do that over and over again, and we find ourselves continually returning to the same habits. It's not enough sometimes to simply say, I quit. I'm not going to do that anymore. Sometimes that works, but often it does not. Often people have issues that the behavior is hinged upon, and not until they rectify what is the very cornerstone or the basis for this poor behavior can they make changes. Although it doesn't go on to say anything, it's a fairly incomplete verse. I think it's important to continue to consider that Jesus is not a person, but is a Christ consciousness. So to me, that would be something that you're seeking, but it would also be something that you are. It is your desire. It is like your Buddha nature, only to the Hebrews. And it doesn't say anything about what happens when you show them the cornerstone. It's the cornerstone, sure, there's a basis for something, but it doesn't say, show me the cornerstone that they've rejected and I will use it, or I will clear it out, or I will rebuild off of it, or anything like that. There's no directions that go with this. That leaves it kind of open. The other possibility is that he's suggesting that your basic self, when you're born, your body, your mind, your soul, the emptiness of it, the completeness of it is the cornerstone. The builders continue to add things to it, building up something, whatever it is you become, while they reject the cornerstone. They're not staying true to who and what you are. These are pretty obscure ideas, though, and I'm honestly stretching to try to get those. If anything, it illustrates the processes of how to make it something that is personally viable to you. I don't see it there. Jump in. Okay, verse number 67. Jesus says, whoever knows all, if he is lacking one thing, he is lacking everything. Okay, I have a different volume, and I want to read the same verse out of here. It's slightly different. Listen to this. Jesus said, if the one who knows the all still feels a personal deficiency, he is completely deficient. Well, that sounds pretty harsh, doesn't it? You do all that work, you're still not quite there, so you're nowhere. Is that what it means? I don't think so. I have a different idea on this. And again, it's a stretch, but I wrote a story one time. And this part of the story entails these travelers that are on foot. This is 2,000 years ago. Honestly, it's Jesus and somebody walking with him. It's just a story I made up. The idea, though, is that they're walking along this path, and it's hot, it's dry, it's dusty. They're very thirsty, parched. The companion has been asking Jesus questions about life and about people and why people are the way they are, and I'll leave that part out of the story. In the teaching lesson, Jesus stops at this watering hole, and it's a two-tier watering hole. There's an upper level and a lower level, and the upper level is where the spring bubbles up from in the ground, and it's clear, delicious, cool water. Kind of stuff you want to drink. Nice stone barrier up around it. Perfect place to stop and have a picnic, I guess. Anyway, it overflows down into a lower pool where the animals drink from. And the goats and the camels and whatever else, they come and they refresh from there. The lower pool is mucky, muddy. It's full of animal dung. It's pretty nasty stuff. So Jesus takes his cup and he goes to the lower pool and he reaches in and he scoops out this brown water and holds it up to his companion and says, what do you see? And the guy looks in there and he sees this cup of water that's like muddy. It's brown. There's a segmented worm swimming around in there and it grosses him out. He's like, oh my God, that's nasty. It's horrible. And he says, yeah, you're right. Jesus tells him you're right. And he flips it out and he cleans out the cup. And they go to the upper section and he reaches in and he pulls out a cup full of water, he scoops it out and shows him and says, what do you see here? And he says, oh, I see pure, wonderful water. And, he wants to drink. He's very thirsty and parched. But Jesus doesn't let him. He reaches down to the ground and finds a little piece of dung there and picks it up and rubs it and sprinkles it into the cup. And it lands on top and it's filtering down into it. And he holds it out to him and says, what do you see now? And the guy's like, wow, you ruined it. Well, you destroyed that beautiful cup of water by putting that in there. Why did you do that? And the story, of course, seems a little spot on, doesn't it? It's kind of obvious. The clean water was clean water. The dirty water was dirty water. It didn't matter how dirty or how nasty. It was unfit. It was not pure. Pure is pure. Not pure is not pure. If you want to be living your life experiencing the kingdom of heaven within, it has to be complete. It's got to be all the way. A little bit of impure is completely impure. Only because totally pure is totally pure. We kind of live life having this balance. That person's okay. They only have this one little quirk. And these people over here, oh my God, you never can. Yeah, that's the way it is in life. But for the individual, the person that is on this path, that is seeking this, that really wants purity, you can't leave things in place thinking that I'll just leave that little bit there. You really want to get after it all. And if you know that, and you're living your life that way, at no point in time do you feel like, oh yeah, I'm really good. I only have a few things that I'm hiding away. No, that person feels like, oh my God, I've still got some things that I have to deal with. And that's kind of a personal thing. Not everybody is going to be that way. Not everybody's going to seek that level. If you are seeking that level and you've got something in you that you're hiding away, you will feel completely deficit. But like has been talked about in previous parts of this, that varies for the person. One person may be devastated by something that another person who had the same experience isn't bothered by it. Honestly, the energy process that's happening in your brain and the way you perceive it is what the issue is. Your perceptions. Not what happened, but how you perceive it. And as a result of your perceptions, how it emotionally resides. Is it something that is benign or happy, or is it something that is hurtful and shameful? And I really go a lot to this extreme because that is how I found for myself how to shed all of the weight that I had. But there are still things about us that maybe weren't pain, that didn't come from some part of our childhood or some abuse along the way. It may simply be perceptions of people or things that are inaccurate, that are wrong, that are judgmental. Those things too will keep you off. Your inability to have control over your intake of drugs and alcohol, food, anything like that. It's not just about getting rid of your pain. It's about becoming a person that is just, I got a handle on stuff and I'm happy. And of course, this goes without saying, but hurting other people is a factor as well. If you're hurting people and you feel okay about it, that's not okay. That's not the kingdom of heaven within. You are creating hurt. Just feeling okay about yourself, by yourself, living completely within your own self is what we're talking about here. Not interfacing with other people and, well, like I said, hurting them, but you're okay with it. Even if you feel justified. That's not right. Okay, moving on to verse 68. Jesus says, "Blessed are you whenever they hate you and persecute you, but they themselves will find no place there where they have persecuted you." Okay, first off, blessed are you whenever they hate you and persecute you. That happens in this world all the time, and people are not blessed. So we have to imply something different. It doesn't make sense on that level. This applies to people who are on this path, on this search, and you're in a group of people and they know it and they see it and they sense it and you talk about it and you get excited and you think, oh, I found the answer to life. It's made me feel great. Let me tell you what to do. That's a mistake that I've made, and I got myself in big trouble over it. Carrying the shame of molestation for many years was really incredibly hard on me. And it was difficult. And when I shed that, it was like so earth-shatteringly significant to me that I swore everybody who heard my story would thank me and say, "Oh my gosh, that's what I've been looking for. I want to get rid of this." You know what? That's not right. I'll tell you what happens is that they will persecute you. The ones that also have the pain and the shame. People that don't have that pain and shame will say, "Oh, wonderful. Good for you. Right on." They don't have an issue with it. They never did. They never would have. You had the issue, and everybody else that has had whatever it is you're trying to rectify has those issues. And if they're not ready to deal with those issues, and you let them know that you know the right thing for them to do, yeah, they'll persecute you. They will find no place there where they have persecuted you. They won't find peace in their heart in that same arena, in that same realm, in that same place where you're dealing with the things that you feel like they should deal with as well. They don't have peace because they're not going to deal with it. That's that one. Now, verse 69. Jesus says, "Blessed are those who have been persecuted in their heart. They are the ones who have truly come to know the Father. Blessed are those who suffer from hunger, so that the belly of the one who wishes it will be satisfied." Okay, the first one of those two, blessed are those who have been persecuted in their heart, for they are the ones who have truly come to know the Father. This is a very good clue that 2,000 years ago they did not know what a brain was, or that we had a brain, or how it functioned. They operated like most people would today, not knowing any different, based on the feelings, based on your emotional state, based on the way that you experience life. And we kind of feel that in our core, in our body. The things that come about from the sensations that are there because of your central nervous system. Everything from gut feelings to just emotional states of depression. All of that comes from your heart, right? That's what they would think. That's how it feels. But all of that sensation comes from the balance or the imbalance of the thoughts, the emotions, the experiences that you're packing in your gray matter. So if you want to be persecuted in your heart, what you want to do is persecute yourself. You're the one that's doing the persecuting. This is a great example of one of the verses. You turn it inward and you make it about yourself, and you are the one in charge. When you persecute yourself, you are looking at those things that you've hidden away, and you are dealing with them. You're managing them. And when you do that, they are the ones who have truly come to know the Father. The Father is what? I know in Christianity that's God, but in this personal spiritual teaching, what is encoded in here is the idea that it's the part of you, of your thought process, of that channel of your mind that is the one that is in charge of things, that makes everything okay. If you don't persecute yourself, if you don't take care of those things, your Father is not in charge. The part of you that manages life is not in charge. Those other things are in charge. The issues that you pack with you that you try to hide away, you would know this if you are this person. They come out when you least expect it. You're not in charge when that's happening. They are. You have to persecute your heart. See the metaphor here. Anyway, that's the first one. The second one, blessed are those who suffer from hunger, so that the belly of the one who wishes it will be satisfied. This is one that I can say from my experience, and it's something that shows up in my earlier videos as well. is that if you want to know something with a burning desire and you are really, oh my God, I've got to figure this out, everything you need is going to come to you. I've got my 747 story somewhere nested in there. But you'll find books, you'll find people, somebody will say something, you'll have a conversation with someone and you'll be like, oh my gosh, how is this happening? That's the magic that happens. That is how this process works. Whether you're a Taoist, a Buddhist, a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, whether you're an atheist, it doesn't matter. The process works this way for everybody. If you have a hunger, which is spiritual hunger, metaphorically, I need to consume something that is helpful for me. If that is sincere, it's going to happen. It will. It might not happen overnight, and it might be incredibly obscure. My 747 story, yeah, that took several years to unfold. Next verse, number 70. Jesus says, if you bring it into being within you, then that which you have will save you. If you do not have it within you, then that which you do not have within you will kill you. Boy, more fun Jesus stuff, huh? These are very obscure, cryptic puzzles. This is what makes them so fun, though, when you analyze them, when you figure them out, when you realize they're about you, and you begin applying the process of making them a part of your life. They'll wire into your brain. Okay, let's take a look at these two. If you bring it into being within you, then that which you have will save you. I'm going to say it like this. You already have inside of you the things you need for enlightenment. You don't have to go find it anywhere. It's not out there in the world. The hero's journey is actually about that, is about going off and adventuring and fighting crazy demons and creatures and going through all these hardships and turmoils and then returning back home only to figure out that everything you needed was at home all the time. That's the same story. We make the hero's journey when we decide we're going to go off and try to find our answers. And we finally come full circle and realize, God, I've got it inside of me all along. That's what that first verse means. In the second one, I think it's important sometimes just to take these verses and look at them and distill them down. There's a lot of extra words. In this case, it says, if you do not have it within you, then that which you do not have within you will kill you. Boy, that could be said in much easier ways, couldn't it? You can just say, the things that you need that you don't have inside of you will be your demise. And the answers that you need, you do have inside of you. But if you don't have the desire, the drive, the personality, the fortitude, the interest, I don't know what qualities it takes to make somebody say, I'm going on that path. But if you don't have that, well, you're going to be dead to yourself. It's not dead, not kill you, but dead to you having control of your life. You're just going with the flow. And some people are fine with going with the flow. So I want to emphasize again that there's nothing wrong with not going on this path. Verse 71. Jesus says, I will destroy this house, and no one will be able to build it again. More very strange metaphoric ways of saying things. And remembering that another reason that Abrahamic descended religions are encoded in such a way to be this obscure is there's that religious layer. This is one that can be interpreted in so many possible ways that just about anybody from any belief can grab onto this and make it fit what they believe. Again, that's why you use the tools. You make it about yourself. You make it about your soul, your subconscious mind. And you're attempting to achieve the kingdom of heaven within. That's how you find success in decoding these verses instead of them just being whatever you want it to be. This is just more metaphor for the same thing. Here's your house. It has been constructed throughout life as you live life, as you have experiences, as you become judgmental. The Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, same thing, this idea of I'm letting everything go. The structure that is there needs to go away. I need to be open and not kind of enclosed and boxed in. When you achieve a certain point, then that structure goes away. And if you do it effectively, nobody will be able to build it again. The structure doesn't come back. Verse 72. A person said to him, "Tell my brothers that they have to divide my father's possessions with me." He said to him, "Man, who has made me a divider?" He turned to his disciples and said to them, "I am not a divider, am I?" Okay, this one's perfect. It's very simple. It's very easy. It goes along with all of the teachings that we've had about making the two into one. Additionally, however, I think it contains a lot of elements that we can use throughout this process. The brothers are the offspring of the father. If the father is what is in control of the mind, metaphorically, in control of the life, and what you want to be the overseer of everything that you have going on in your existence. And the offspring of that are the sons. Those are the things that emerge from your life experience that become metaphorically your offspring. Like Cain and Abel were of Adam and Eve, good and the bad. They became divided, and the bad actually killed the good, right? I'll leave that for another video. So here we have the brothers, or component parts of the mind, asking Jesus to divide for them. And he said, "I'm not a divider." And then, of course, he asked his disciples, "I'm not a divider, am I?" This is simply teaching us, the seeker, that this Christ nature is intended to combine everything. It is not to have a multifaceted mind. And by that, I mean multifaceted emotionally, or having parts of you that you don't have control over, parts of you that are acting out because of things you want to keep tucked away, or because of incorrect beliefs that you have, to become single-minded in that area. Obviously, we have a lot of things that we have to do throughout the day, and they entail different parts of thinking, and that's all fine. What we're looking for is that kingdom of heaven within, which means that as we go about our day-to-day activities and as we're conducting our business, that our single-mindedness has to do with peace and love, compassion, those things. So we don't want to be divided in that area. Okay, let's move on to verse 73. Jesus says, "The harvest is plentiful, but there are few workers. But beg the Lord that he may send workers into the harvest." Okay, here is the way that I read this one. The harvest is plentiful, but there are few workers. The harvest happens whenever we manifest life. Whatever we do is a manifestation, whether you're fixing a cup of coffee, whether you're screaming at your neighbor, whether you're going to the movies, and some of the stuff is very benign, it's just life. But the things that we do when we're acting out are the fruits of our labor, the fruits of our mind. The harvest happens when those things come out, when they manifest. The stuff can be tucked away. You've got the weeds in your garden. They surface from time to time. Everything has a season, right, in its own turn. The Bible is rich with this stuff, hidden at a deep layer. When we see these things happen, when we act out, when we scream and yell or do the things that we don't like to do or don't want to do, that's a manifestation. That's the fruits of something inside of us. It is incumbent upon us, if we're on the search and we're looking to clear ourselves of all of this stuff, is to observe it. You want to be the worker that recognizes that. You want to be able to say, oh, I did that again. Why? Where does it come from? I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to talk to that person. I'm going to make amends. I'm going to make restitution. I'm going to try to figure out why I continue to act that way. What is it about my belief? What is it about my conditioning? What is it about my past experience? I need to surface these things. I need to look at them. I need to observe what my fruits are, remembering some of the previous stuff that we've covered. This fruit comes from a tree that comes from a root, and you have to expose that root to get rid of the tree, to get rid of the fruit. And that is precisely the 2,000-year-old metaphor that means the way we act out comes from the hurt that we have inside of us, our demons, our experiences that we hold that still have the emotional charge of hatred or anger, shame, something that is not good. We work to resolve those and then be able to take care of that and then go about your business. And then a week later, when you do the same thing again, do it again until you figure it out, until you've changed it, until you've said, I've rectified that. Now I'm just reacting because of habits. Now I have to practice something different. I've got to take something else into account. I'll let you know that a busy, hectic lifestyle gets in the way of doing this process. This is a very, I would say, time-consuming perhaps sometimes. Sometimes we easily recognize things, and other times it's very buried. This is clearly and ultimately that act of self-observation. But not just observing yourself, but recognizing what's going on and then taking steps to change what's there. And a lot of stuff we do, we don't care about. If you're having fun and you're just helping people and everybody's goofing around and you're laughing and life is going on or things are benign, you don't stop to figure out what's wrong. Nothing is. The important thing is to recognize when something has gone wrong and you're a part of it. And boy, sometimes this is where it gets difficult too. Sometimes you think you're right, but you're hurting people. Right-wing, left-wing protesters that are angry, fighting for a cause, are hurting each other. They're hurting people, and it continues to grow that way. You need to recognize a lot more than just the things that make you feel bad and that you have regrets for later. That's only one component. It's a difficult thing. You got to let things go. But this verse is about recognizing that, seeing it, not just acting out things and letting it go, making up excuses and having it repeat over and over again. It's seeing what you did and going, oh my God, what have I done? I'm so sorry. Ask me how I know this stuff. I was given my parents' demons and I had to exorcise those. But I know they were given demons from theirs. We're all in that boat if we're here. We've got something about us that came from somewhere that we have to forgive, that we have to change our emotional state. And that is how we pull the roots out. Recognizing it, number one, and number two, changing the way we feel about it. That's how the healing happens. We know from modern science and current brain research that there's an electrochemical brain state up here that has to change in order for the healing to occur, in order for the behavior to stop. And then, like I said, sometimes maybe you've got it all taken care of, but you still just habitually act out, and you have to be aware of it. You got to keep on it. And a reality as a part of this to be aware of is that you don't know it's okay until it acts out again. You can't sit there when everything is fine and okay and start going through your mind and figuring out what's wrong and taking care of it. It's almost as if you have to have it act out. You have to have it surface before you see it and recognize and understand the severity of it. And how extreme it comes out of you is how extreme it is in you. These are all indicators that we have when we live life and look at life of how to self-examine, of how to be critical of ourselves. This is exactly something that dovetails with that. Blessed is he who is persecuted within themselves, in their mind, in their heart, in their soul. This is the act of persecution. They used weird words. We have to update the language so that we can work with it. It makes perfect sense if we just give it some modern terms. Okay, moving on. Verse number 74. He said, Lord, there are many around the well, but there is nothing in the well. Okay, this one's going to be an I don't know from me. I can't quite make heads or tails out of it. I'm going to go ahead and read another verse, though, another interpretation of the same verse. Let's take a look at the slight variation and see if we can get anything further out of it. He said, O Lord, there are many around the drinking trough, but there is nothing in the cistern. You can see sometimes it's important to have a couple of different interpretations. I've got like 6 or 7 of the Tao Te Ching, for example. People, when they interpret it, do their best, and they choose words based on what they think fits best, and they'll choose different ones. Sometimes it's good to look at 4 or 5 different interpretations, the different words, to try to get a better idea of a concept instead of a simple word. In this case, what we see is, in the first one, there's nothing in the well, and people are standing around it. The well is where the water accumulates, but it comes from an underground aquifer or a spring or something from somewhere. So in the first verse, it's simply saying that the well is empty, people are around it, and there's nothing in there. In the second verse, it says drinking trough and a cistern. The cistern is the source. The cistern is like the big tank or pool somewhere up high that flows water down into the trough. So in the second one, they're saying the people are standing around the drinking trough, which means not only is the water that they want not there, but the source isn't there. Regardless, when I look at those, I don't see anything that tells me what to do. People are standing around and there's nothing there. Is that good or bad for them? Spending a little time and trying to analyze these all the way, you look at it first in the surface layer and realize that water is a good thing. We know that this is a desert region 2,000 years ago where they are, so if people want water and it's not there, that's not okay. But we don't look at it at that layer. We turn it inward and make it about ourselves. But in this case, are we the well? Are we the source? Are we the water? What is it that we are in this case? The idea of becoming empty is good. That's what we're looking for. But if we're looking to consume something that is helpful to us, and the information isn't there, or the source isn't there, the aquifer is not filled, then that's not good. But I don't think that's what the teaching would be. We know that if people are looking for answers, they will find their answers. So the cistern is never empty in that case, so that can't be it. You can see that you go through processes like this, thinking through, trying to figure out and analyze it. And in this case, it just doesn't say whether it's a good or a bad thing. Remember, in the Bible, Jesus changed water into wine. Wine was the good thing and the water wasn't. So who knows? Who knows? We'll let that one go. Let's go ahead and move on to the next verse. Number 75. Jesus says, many are standing before the door, but it is the solitary ones who will enter the wedding hall. Okay, this one is kind of a common theme that we see in other places. We have teachings in the Bible about entering the wedding chamber. What is the wedding chamber? What is the bride and the bridegroom? We've been through enough of this now that you should be getting the idea that in this case we're calling the consciousness the male, the subconscious the female. They get separated through life. They become 2 different things. We want to combine and get back to that one. We want to become one again. What that entails metaphorically is a marriage between our conscious and our subconscious, a marriage between our male and our female sides, the recombining of the two. And the wedding chamber then is here, the mind, the brain. So who gets married? We look here and it says it's the solitary ones who will enter the wedding hall. Obviously, what we have is the idea that if you're solitary, that if you have made that connection, that combined the two together, then you are now solitary. You enter that place of bliss, of being, the wedding hall. Sounds pretty obscure, doesn't it? It all aligns with the same teachings that we've had previously. As a matter of fact, we see parallels with it in the Bible where the idea is that there's a gate and only the solitary will enter. While many are standing outside the gate, only the solitary will come in. And entering is, yes, going through yourself, your heart, your soul. It's a narrow place. Okay, verse 76. Jesus says, "The kingdom of the Father is like a merchant who had merchandise and found a pearl. That merchant is prudent. He sold the goods and bought for himself the pearl alone. You too look for his treasure, which does not perish and which stays where no moth can reach it to eat it and no worm destroys it." Okay, right off the top of our heads, I bet all of us can think of 3 variations of this same story, the same lesson. Let's cover it first. In this case, what we're looking at is a merchant who found a pearl, something that's valuable. He got rid of everything else and kept the pearl alone. This is a story telling us to find the one thing that is important to you. Look for the unity. Look for the peace, the happiness, the kingdom of heaven within. Focus on that. Become that. You too look for his treasure which does not perish and which stays where no moth can reach it to eat it and no worm destroys it. I kind of picture this life back then where if you had garments, they were probably difficult to come by. Available, certainly, but you had to pay for them. Work was probably not very much pay. You probably did a lot of trading and bartering. And if you had a couple of garments and they were stacked up somewhere and moths got in and eat them, that would be like going out and finding somebody smashed your car and drove off today or something. It's like, oh my gosh, this is catastrophic. And worm destroys it. You've got food, you've got grain, you've got things that are for your survival. And you go to get some stuff out to make some meals, bread, something, and the worms have destroyed it. So these are big deals to them. It's really significant. Those are the things that perish. Those represent the physical world. That represents the things that you can try to achieve in life, all the things you can buy, all the things you can purchase, all the wealth that you can gain. And it doesn't matter. When you die, there's not a bit of that goes with you. Is that what is important to you in life? If it is, yeah, go for it. If you're on this path, understand that what can't be touched is what is up here. So there's 3 different versions of the same story. One is to the merchant. Do you remember the one about the fish? The fisherman threw out his net. He pulled in a whole bunch of fish. Among the fish, he found one big one, and he kept it and threw all the others back. How about the one about the sheep, where the guy had 100 sheep, but his big one, his favorite one, disappeared, and he went and spent time looking for it, and he found it and told it that he loved that sheep more than all the other sheep. These are the same lessons being nested in a story for a shepherd, for a fisherman, for a merchant, the people of their time. Okay, moving on to verse 77. Jesus says, "I am the light that is over all. I am the all. The all came forth out of me, and to me the all has come. Split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift the stone, and you will find me there." It's a very magical verse, isn't it? Sounds mystical, like if there was a reason to turn to the supernatural, this would be the one. I'm not going to do that. It takes you off course. It turns you back outward. So I don't know how to look at this one. I look at it and say, this means existence, the universe, the cosmos, everything, the sum of all existence, which we are a part of. Every bit of matter and energy in this universe, we're part of it. We are in it. We are of it. We exist because of it. We're not separate from it. We are, yeah, we're there. What this is saying is that I am, Jesus is, Christ is. I think that the idea we're supposed to see here is that we are all that. Everybody and everything is that. Our consciousness takes us to strange places, but at the end of the day, at the very core, at the very bottom of everything, my idea of just one truth, this is it. There's one underlying thing, and this is it. It doesn't tell us what to do. It just says we're all a part of it. I'm a part of it. That I'm not a separate being somewhere. That I am the sum of all existence. And that if we live our lives, and we do, most people do live their lives thinking, I am separate. I am an individual that is not a part of any of that. I am living in that. When you maintain your state of what they would call asleep or dead or just being a product of things and thinking that the physical world is what there is, you're really facing away from your source. That when you look inward, you face this all existence. He's saying that in this verse, that he is everything. And by default, we know we are a part of everything as well. When you turn inward, you're facing your source. When you turn outward, you're looking away from it. That's not said in this verse. I'm taking liberties. I guess I'm going there by implication. But, yeah, anyway, okay. Let's move on to verse 78. Jesus says, "Why did you go out to the countryside? To see a reed shaken by the wind? And to see a person dressed in soft clothing, like your kings and your great powerful persons? They are dressed in soft clothing and will not be able to recognize the truth." Okay, this is one that we could potentially put a lot into, but I have to resist that. This is one where I would get, really verbose trying to detail a lot of things. I think it's better off on this one to just step back and take a more broader picture. What are you doing out in the countryside to see the reed shaken by the wind and the people in fancy clothes and whatnot? We're living our life. We're looking for answers. We're looking for guidance. People that are wealthy, people that are well-to-do, people that have things, you look to them because you think they must have it together. Look at their success. You go to ask them, and they're all, the great, fancy, powerful, nice clothing and all that kind of stuff. But they don't recognize the truth. They're living in that realm of the physical world. And though they might be happy and though they might have success, they're not necessarily the inner seeking monastic type of monk figure that Jesus was, or that the Buddha was, or gurus, sages, the people that let the physical go. You don't look to those people for the answers. But you don't look to poor people either. I think this is kind of alluding to the idea of using critical thinking, which means you don't listen to anybody. And I don't mean you don't hear them out. You don't hear what they have. You don't hear what they have to offer. Seeking and knocking is about grasping onto everything you possibly can and trying to make sense out of it. But at the end of the day, that's it. You try to make sense out of it. You don't listen to somebody else who tells you what to believe or what to think. That's not critical thinking. That's not thinking at all. That is obedience. You're not supposed to be obedient. Yes, you obey the laws of the land, but when it comes to the spiritual search, you don't do what people tell you. You listen to them and you think, does that make sense? We see that a lot. You go to, I don't want to pick on them. I don't have any choice. I went to church. I was told what to believe and what to think. And when I questioned it, I was told I was really stepping out of line, that I was not being obedient, that I was not following the word of God. The expectation was shut up and do as you're told. Believe what you're told. And if you believed and you were happy with them and you were on board, you were part of their big clique. But none of them think critically. They don't. Okay. You know what? We've gone into an hour now. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I want to say something. There's a video that I plan on doing in the future about the miracles that Jesus performed and how they are metaphoric in nature. And I want to say one of them right now that has been applying to me as I do this. The one where he fed the multitude, the story about teaching people, a big group of people, but they get hungry and you have to feed them. It's one day. Think about that. Is this a true story? Everybody has been here listening all day. They're hungry. They have to go home. Yeah, walk home, you big babies. It's been one day. You can go without a meal. There's something else in that story. When you make it a spiritual story, then you're talking about feeding the soul of people, the spirits. When you got 3,000, 5,000, 7,000, whichever version you listen to, there's a lot of people and there's a certain amount of food that you feed them, the fish and the loaves, and you break it apart and you feed everybody. And at the end of the day, not only has everybody had their fill, but there's more left over. And I believe for myself that that is what I have been experiencing in this to a degree. Because I've approached this realizing that, boy, there's a lot of these verses that are very cryptic and I don't know how good of a handle I have on them. And in teaching them and in going through them and pondering them and verbalizing them, they've become more clear. And I'm sure they would continue to become more clear. And I believe that's all there is to it. It's not a miracle. It's a natural process. It's what happens. When you teach, when you help, when you do for others things that you might not be an expert at, you get better. You get better at it. Anyway, I just wanted to wrap this up with that. Hope you got something out of it. I did. I really did. I'm excited. I feel good. I'll see you in the next video.